Hello, everyone. This is Lee Willingham from Wilfrid Laurier University, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. Today, we're going to explore some areas in research where community music touches on socially engaged situations and contexts. We want to do it by exploring, first of all, areas of community music that we consider as areas of social engagement. And I go back to some of the key foundational principles in community music that we've developed over the years, such as inclusivity and hospitality, the idea of respect for others, collaborative processes, engaging in learning that's not just for your age group, but lifelong, and also includes learning with intergenerational situations. Of course, embedded in community music is this area of social justice and activism and pointing the spotlight on some cultural and social concerns. We also find quite a bit of literature that deals with health and wholeness and wellness, well-being, the whole notion of living well and optimally as music participation enhances one's experiences. And then we also consider the idea of mindfulness or contemplative practice as being a key component for finding self, for centering self, and working in areas that might be challenging and might provide for us some concerns around our own capacity to facilitate and lead. So community music's interestingly situated to enact positive change. We are from a similar root as education and therapy, but we have very different research platforms. Music education, quite often the research is philosophical based or it's pedagogically driven, it's action research driven based on skills, instructional strategies, musical performance styles, accuracy, musicality, the whole idea of research as performance. And so that's a little different than we do in community music. Music therapy in Canada for sure, and certainly most of the world, is rooted in psychotherapeutic practice, where there's a clinical client relationship established. And in these situations, this requires usually some kind of certification or regulatory body with oversight. Here in community music, we privilege the participatory engagement of the musician. The musician is more important than the music. And so the idea here is as musicians make music, there is an intent or a focus on enhancing and building community. So what do we mean by socially engaged research or research and practice? We're looking at content that is not exclusively Western Euro classical music, but embraces and invites the broad spectrum of human practice. This kind of research focuses on thinking critically about and understanding deeply the context of the music that we are studying and the context of the participants that we are dealing with. Diversity is really important here. So we're not looking at groups of people that are necessarily like us or familiar to us or that we're comfortable with, but we're resisting that human nature, the reinforcement of racial, cultural, and ethnic disparities. And we know that the majority of the world, almost everybody, engages in music in some way. And the way people engage in music isn't necessarily the way we teach in the academy. And we want to connect in our research to the majority of the world's peoples, the way they deal with music in their cultures and in their traditions. Our facilitation skills must then honor those other points of respect, creativity, reflexivity, but to be substantive and not superficial. Our research intends to adapt music making to include people with diverse skills and abilities. There's a place for everybody here. It connects music making to the issues that matter. In other words, let's be relevant and let's be contextually accurate, making sure that we're connecting to the people whose interests we share that include enhancing life, health, and social cohesion. So these are just some of the points that I deal with when I'm looking at community music as a socially engaged research practice. So we move into the academy. That's where lots of research, most research takes place in the university setting. How does a grassroots cultural identity move from the work that we see on the ground into the lofty towers of the university setting? So this is something that we've been very careful about in terms of not separating the research from the practice, making sure that what we do is grounded in the very essence of community music practice. Also, this provides us an area to seek non-traditional, creative, innovative approaches in building courses and in building programs where research informs those program development. We go back to this phrase that's pretty well known to most of you, I'm sure, where we're looking at people, places, participation, inclusion, and diversity. And finally, I kind of like this because I wrote it, but it's participatory in practice. We're doing music. It's an experiential setup for us to make music. It's rigorous in theory, and in pedagogy, it's constructivist. And I won't go into the theories of these now, but we think about constructivism as being another form of inclusive, shared, co-creating, and co-learning. So I want to share some examples of this kind of research that we're doing in our community here in Waterloo, Ontario. And these are just little thumbnail sketches of some research practices that I think touch on areas of social engagement. For the past 15 years, we've collaborated with a local seminary. It's now called Martin Luther University College, the Faculty of Music, our Laurier Center for Music in the Community, other faith-based groups, community and secular groups, indigenous groups, to put on an event that brings singing and music and other cultural aspects of practice together to focus on some aspect of social justice or social concerns. You can see the various types of things we do. Last year, we talked about 1 + 1 + 1 is 1. And it was kind of how do we live together in a community of diversity and interfaith and non-faith people. Then, of course, the pandemic hit us. The COVID-19 created a situation where we almost wondered, should we even mount this festival? And we decided to go ahead with it online, and we focused on the area of home. And I'll come back to these slides. This was our feature this past month, a couple of weeks ago actually, where we looked at what does home mean during the COVID pandemic? And we thought about being homeless and what does that mean? And we also thought about homebound. Some of us were isolated in our homes for several weeks. And then we thought about moving towards home and moving away from home. And this was a very powerful discussion that involved lots of things. But that will be posted online at some point, and I hope we'll be able to share that link with you. Backing up. This little song from the Canticle of the Turning kind of became Sing Fires of Justice theme song. My heart shall sing of the day you bring. Let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near and the world is about to turn. It's an aspirational set of words that we cling to as we come together to make music, to share words and thoughts in the interest of turning that world a little bit further. Now I'm going to move to our second project, which is called the Gaku Project. This project was a joint partnership with some cultural organizations within the Kitchener-Waterloo, this is our region, our municipal region here, and the Faculty of Music and high school students. Deanna Yarchuk, our colleague, along with Brendan Connolly and Josh Hill, both involved in Laurier's music program, but also in other aspects of the community, partnered with the school board to deal with this racial justice community music initiative. Using this cultural practice of the Gaku, which is a recreational style of music from Ghana, West Africa, it incorporates singing, dancing, and drumming as a vehicle to explore the challenges and possibilities of creating more inclusive climates. For classrooms with African, Caribbean, and Black identifying students in the Waterloo region. This was a massive undertaking. It involved many workshops in individual schools and culminated in a coming together of a large-scale outdoor event. Over 400 students performing the Gahu with master drummer Kwaji from Ghana and with student and professional performers that brought this on. Here's what it looked like in front of City Hall Square. You can see the performers down here, but around these double circles of students dancing and singing, and crowds started to develop as this event took place. It had a tremendous impact on high school kids last spring, and a year ago, and also amongst the participants within the Faculty of Music to help us understand that there are ways that we can decolonize, or at least move towards decolonization and working towards relationships that help us understand the power struggles, the power imbalances that are systemic in our various organizations. The event culminated in a trip. 14 of our students spent 2 weeks in Ghana that spring, working with master musicians, villages, cities, universities, and I think it was a trip of a lifetime. Third event is called the Circle of Music. This is a choir that was established by one of our grad students, Sasha Judelson, to deal with those dealing with dementia, living with dementia. The structure of the choir was to go to the Wellington Waterloo Alzheimer's Society and have them refer people, clients in their society, to this choir. And the criteria would be that you come with your partner caregiver and we provide a teenage volunteer. So there's a trio of people in each little pod, and you can see this picture. A high school student is helping the gentleman with dementia, and his partner caregiver is having a little break, I think, and singing away. It was funded by some government programs, and it was partnershiped and continues on to this day. We just got new funding renewed as part of the COVID situation. The whole thing now has moved online, but there's some very interesting research taking place. Here you can see one of the examples of a circle. There's a pianist in the corner. You can see about 25 people sitting there. Sasha's leading, and they're singing from songbooks that she has created that start with familiar songs, very easy songs, welcome songs, move into somewhat more complex songs, and ending with a goodbye song. She's conducted, along with me, quite a bit of research in this area. Part of the research is the pre and post. So what is the mood of the participant before the choir rehearsal, during, and after? And what is the long-term or any kind of lingering benefits from this choir? She's got a number of things that have been published, and you can look them up. But I have to tell you that this has been a very powerful study, and it's garnered the attention of a fair number of people working with aging populations, with people living with dementia and Alzheimer's. The Uva Arts Project was a research project, and not an exchange, but actually a travel project that was sponsored by undergraduate community music students at Laurier. And the project was to bring 8 youth from Mumbai, a suburb or a district within Mumbai, who were living with families who were engaged in the sex trade, sexually exploited women. These kids were stigmatized, even though they were able to go to a private school, wear a uniform, because of the stigma attached to where they lived and who their parents were or parent was. They were ostracized from mainstream. And the students who thought about this project felt that bringing them to Canada and working with indigenous youth here, as well as new migrants, Syrian refugee youth, would be an inspiration, would build a network with them and help them strengthen their identity. We had a whole series of workshops. My colleague, Dr. Gerard Young, was very involved with this project, and all kinds of creative arts, songwriting, visual art making, festivals, and so on took place. It was a powerful project, and follow-up studies show that the results have been pretty amazing. These were some of the goals of this research project: to develop self-exploration, sense of creativity, identity, establishing self-worth, establishing unity, honoring one's own ideas, finding your voice, developing a network of community, friendship, and of course, music therapy, working towards goals. And they were accompanied by social workers, and there were kids living with some serious trauma, and the music tended to be therapeutic. So music therapists worked with them. Dr. Colin Lee worked with them a number of sessions as well. So a tremendous success story of change, of how music participation helps enact change in these challenges. This was impressive because this whole project landed on the shoulders of these three young students. Tamara, in the middle, is from Mumbai and has worked with an NGO there for some time. Olivia and Lisette are students just graduating now. And they had to deal with all kinds of government, bureaucracy, policies, unbelievable resistance and roadblocks. In fact, at one point, there was an accusation that these students would become refugees and would flee. But all worked out because of the tenacity and persistence of these young musicians who saw the value of participatory music making in enhancing the lives. Quickly, I'm going to go through this one. This is a shared project with my colleague, Dr. Andrea Creech, where we looked at people in aging situations and how to enhance their lives with musical digital products, like learning how to use iPads and that sort of thing. So mobilizing music and creative technologies for inclusive later life musical learning and participation, creative expression, digital literacy, and quality of life. Massive pan-Canadian project, hundreds and hundreds of participants. We had a hub here in the Waterloo region where we dealt with some of our research. This is about teaching old dogs new tricks. And we know that there's a phobia around technology and resistance from certain demographics of our aging populations. And this was to demystify, to help open up this whole window of possibilities. I'll just let you read that. We have found that our assumptions around aging populations are not necessarily accurate. They want to be rigorous and full-on learners. They want their learning to not be symbolic or superficial. And we found this to be very rewarding and found a number of avenues or meaningful ways into this. So amongst our Laurier students, these were at least 4 of the projects that took place. One of the most effective was to help seniors in a seniors community use technology to research the festivals of the key holidays of the year. The residents discovered that there were Jewish people and Muslim people and people of Hindu and other faiths who were employees, but they didn't understand when they celebrated Rosh Hashanah or Kwanzaa or something like that. They didn't understand. So we were able to come in and do a workshop with them and then give them links to research these areas. So this was funded by the Society for Social Sciences and Research in Canada. And it's just coming to a close now, but a very powerful project. And my final project is late breaking. This is Mark Himmelman, who just finished his MA program. He identifies as a gay man, musician, who works in a very liturgical high church setting. And he began to explore his own life and took on this bold task, vulnerable task, of looking at the barriers within churches regarding gender identity. And he interviewed 5 pretty well-known church musicians, and these were his questions. What are the social barriers? How can music help break down these barriers? And how can music help facilitate healing within the church? Fear and shame. Music has the capacity, the capability to break down barriers through all kinds of musical participation. So conclusions, these 3 sum up the key conclusions. And quoting Lee Higgins, you can read this. He describes the work of artists, organizers, and other community members collaborating to express identity, concerns, and aspirations through arts and communication media. So Mark found, he was emboldened in his own identity by this, and he found resources. He introduced new things to his church community. Once again, this was happening during COVID-19, and I think a lot of the focus on congregations meeting now without being able to come together in person focused on streaming and pre-recorded work, and Mark's music has been very integral to the healing of that community. He quoted this hymn in his paper: "Let us build a house where all are named, their songs and visions heard, and loved and treasured, taught and claimed as words within the word, built of tears and cries and laughter, prayers of faith and songs of grace. Let this house proclaim from floor to rafter, all are welcome in this place." I am grateful to my grad students who are doing some amazing projects that are vulnerable for themselves, but they're touching on areas of social engagement within the community, and it's relevant research that really matters. So my last slide, where we reflect on the idea that we're reminded music's role in society inspires, educates, and has the capacity to enact justice and play a role in reaching those in need of hope. Hope is very much in need right now. We're looking at this kind of engagement as change-making. It can profoundly enhance communities with gentle nudges and still small voices. Thank you very much for watching and listening. I hope this has helped you in thinking a little bit about how community music, through its own research, through its student participation and scholarly work, can actually enact social change. Thank you very much.